Chapter 14. Brooklyn's gone. I back into Riley and her body stiffens. Her fingers enclose my wrists. Where is she? Riley asks. I don't know. Riley drops my arm. Her eyes widen and she scans the bathroom, edging her way toward the door. Every muscle in her body tenses as if she expects Brooklyn to jump out of the walls. I replay the situation in my head again and again, like it's a math problem that doesn't add up. I wrap my arms around my chest and search the bathroom. Grace clutches the door frame, her knuckles going white. Alexis hovers next to her. The corner of her lips twists into something between a smile and a grimace. We should have known she would get away, she says. I ignore her and start throwing open the cabinets and closet and shower doors empty, all of them. Brooklyn really isn't here. Where the fuck is she? Riley slams her open palm against the counter next to the sink. Riley? No! Riley snaps, cutting me off. We have to find her. Now! The weird smile stays painted on Alexis's face. She wraps a long, blonde strand of hair around one finger. Don't you get it? She's going to find us, and then she's going to kill us. No! Riley jerks her head back and forth. No! She's too weak. That's not going to happen. Grace, search the basement. The rest of us will look for her on the main floors. Why would we look for her inside? Grace is talking so fast that her words slur together. She probably went right for the front door, Rye. No, there's no way out. I made sure of it. She's still in the house. We just have to find her. Grace looks like she might say something else, but instead she presses her lips together and nods. You check the bedrooms, Riley says to Alexis. Sophie and I will look downstairs. Alexis's smile fades. You want me to go alone? Just do it. Riley grabs my arm and pulls me from the room into the hallway. Shadows pull in the corners. The plastic hanging from the ceiling rustles in phantom wind. Every second that ticks past pounds at the inside of my skull. I want Brooklyn to get away from here. I should be trying to mess Riley up. Every moment we waste could be the moment Brooklyn finds an open window or a door without a lock on it. But as much as I want this to be over, and for Brooklyn to be safe, I still don't know what she's capable of. She could be hiding around every corner, waiting on the other side of every wall. She could be anywhere. A floorboard groans. I jump and spin around, but it's just Grace. She slips down the stairs without a word. Riley lifts the worn black backpack from the floor where I dropped it. She pulls it open and removes the butcher knife. Her bare feet are practically silent as she moves down the hallway, her back to the wall to keep the floorboards from creaking. I picture the rows of nails wedged into the window frames. There's no way Brooklyn could pull them out of the wood before we reach the first floor. I have to stall Riley. Hurry, Riley hisses. She starts down the stairs, and when she reaches the landing, she pauses and cocks her head. I hear it too, laughing. At first it's faint, but then it bubbles into a giggle and cuts off abruptly. I turn to look for Alexis, but the hallway behind me is empty. She must have already gone into another room. Check on Lexi, Riley says. The top of her head disappears from view as she makes her way to the first floor. I drag my feet down the hall until I'm standing in front of the window at the end of the hall. Next to the cloudy sheet of plastic hanging from the ceiling. Out of the corner of my eye, I see something dart across the floor, and I spin around. A knotted rope hanging from the ceiling, casting a shadow that sweeps over the floor as it sways back and forth. I reach out to steady it, then tilt my head, following the rope to a door directly above me, the attic. The plastic sheet rustles, even though there's no wind. Brooklyn? I turn, listening for breathing, but I only hear my own heart hammering in my chest. The blurry shadows between the plastic and the unfinished wall look large enough to be a person. I step closer, my sneakers squeaking against the floor. I lift a shaking hand and wrap my fingers around the plastic. Someone laughs. I turn so quickly I lose my balance and stumble into the window behind me. The pane shudders, and for a second I'm certain it'll crack, but it holds. The glass feels cold against my bare arm. There's silence in the empty hallway. Then the laughter rises again. Excuse me, I'm tired. It's breathless at first, then gasping, hysterical. It's coming from the bedroom across from me. I creep forward and push open the door. Alexis is alone in the empty room, her wide, vacant eyes fixed on some point on the wall in front of her. She balances on the sides of her feet, curling her bare toes inward like claws. Blood stains the skin along the bottoms of her feet. Giggling quietly to herself, she twists a long strand of blonde hair around her finger. Tighter and tighter she winds it until her fingertip turns blue. Then she yanks, pulling the hair right out of her head. I gasp, covering my mouth with my hands to muffle the sound. Alexis turns her head slowly, like she just realized I was there. Don't you think it's funny? She spreads her fingers, and the lock flutters out of her hand, landing on a pile of hair at her feet. Curly strands cover the floor like tiny blonde question marks. What's funny, Alexis? I swallow, forcing my eyes away from the hair. We're all going to die here, she says in a raspy voice. We're going to die screaming. A chill runs down my spine. The door behind me slams open and hits the wall with a crack. I take a deep breath as I turn around so I don't look as terrified as I feel. Riley stands in the hallway, one hand curled around the door frame while the other rests next to her leg, clutching the butcher knife. Brown, crusty blood clings to the hems of her jeans. She glances at the hair piled beside Alexis's bare feet, but says nothing. Find Brooklyn yet? Alexis asks. Riley taps the knife against her leg. She's not downstairs. Riley lowers her hand from the doorframe and steps into the hallway to glance out the window. Grace thinks. A ceiling beam groans above us. What was that? I whisper. She's on the roof. Alexis points a cold hand on my arm. Blonde hair clings to her fingertips. How did she get on the roof? The attic door falls open with a crack. Riley jumps and her knife clatters to the floor, its handle sliding beneath the plastic sheet behind her. I swear under my breath and stumble into Alexis. She releases a string of half-crazy giggles and winds another bunch of blonde hair around her finger. The attic door swings back and forth, its hinges creaking. No one's there, Riley gasps, relief flooding her face. Excuse me. She kneels, fumbling along the floor with shaking hands. She stares at the dark hole in the ceiling that leads to the attic while she gropes for the knife. I watch the door, too, picturing Brooklyn dropping down on us. Every hair on the back of my neck stands on end. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a figure appear behind the plastic sheet covering the walls. Before I can react, Brooklyn tears the sheet from the ceiling and brings it down over Riley's face. Riley screams, and Brooklyn tightens the plastic around her head, pulling her to the floor. She pins Riley's arm to the floor with her shoulder and tightens the plastic around her face. Help! Riley yells, sucking the plastic to her lips. Her fingers find the butcher knife, and she waves it around wildly. Brooklyn pulls her hand back and slams it into Riley's face. She tries to tear the knife out of her hand, but Riley's gripping it tight as she stabs at the air, blinded from the cloudy plastic covering her face. Gritting her teeth, Brooklyn slams her elbow into Riley's fist. Riley swears, and her fingers go slack around the knife handle. Brooklyn yanks at the knife again, and this time she tugs it free. Get away from her! Alexis races toward them just as Brooklyn struggles to her feet, holding the knife in front of her. Alexis freezes, then takes a step backward. Don't you fucking touch me! Brooklyn shouts. Now that she's not tumbling around on the ground with Riley, I see just how thrashed she looks. Her clothes are soaked and bloodied, and her hair sticks up in damp spikes. The toilet paper around her destroyed pinky is gone, revealing the red stub where the tip of her finger used to be. The dirty tub water washed the blood from her skin. But that only makes it easier to see the deep cut, ugly cuts twisting across her face and legs and arms. Angry purple bruises blossom on her cheeks like flowers. I lift both arms in surrender and try to catch Brooklyn's eyes. They're shifty and nervous like a wild animal's, but she holds the knife steady. Brooklyn? I take a step toward her, and she jabs the knife at me. This is the moment I've been hoping for since Riley first locked us in the basement. The power has shifted. We can finally escape. Brooklyn, please, Riley pulls the plastic sheet away from her face and pushes herself to her elbow, kicking Brooklyn's legs out from under her. Brooklyn falls backward and slams into the wall. She loses her grip on the knife, and it clatters to the floor. Riley leaps to her feet and rushes her, throwing a shoulder into Brooklyn's gut. Brooklyn regains her footing, and the two girls stumble to the edge of the staircase. Brooklyn starts to fall backward down the stairs, and Riley tries to pull away from her, but Brooklyn grabs her by the hair, and they hit the floor together. They teeter at the top of the stairs before rolling over the edge, crashing downward in a tangle of arms and legs. I race to the top of the staircase, Alexis right behind me. They hit the landing together, and Riley manages to pull herself away from Brooklyn. Brooklyn tries to stand, but Riley kicks her in the chest, sending her plummeting down the rest of the stairs alone. I race after her, but before I reach the landing, Brooklyn rolls onto the floor. She lays there, unmoving. Riley pushes herself onto her elbow, her breathing ragged. Her hair is slicked back with sweat, and there's a new bruise forming at her jawline. Alexis kneels next to her. "Does that hurt?" she asks. She tries to touch Riley's bruise, but Riley swats her hand away, glaring at her. I move around them and start down the steps. Brooklyn's arm is wrenched behind her. Her legs curl beneath her body at strange, unnatural angles. The bottom steps are streaked with blood. I hold on to the railing as I make my way to the first floor. Riley says something, but her words blur before they reach my ears. I'm focused entirely on Brooklyn. I watch her eyes, praying for them to flicker open, but they're still. Halfway down the stairs, I notice Grace hovering next to the wall. It's so dark that her sweatshirt and blue jeans blend in the shadows, and I can't quite make out her expression. She must hear me walking down the stairs, because she glances up from Brooklyn's body. "I think she's dead," Grace says.